Hey there, 6th grade. In the first few videos of the year, we're just going to start out with some review of 4th and 5th grade math. And this first video is just going to be a review of operations with whole numbers. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So we'll start out with adding whole numbers. And when you're adding whole numbers, there are a couple of things to remember. One thing is to make sure you line up your place values. And that's why you'll see grids below each of the problems here, just to help you line up your place values a little bit better. And then the second thing is, don't forget to regroup, which, for those of you who don't know what that term means, that just is a fancy way of saying carrying over to the next place value column. So my first example here is 457 plus 2,384. I always like to place my larger numbers on top when I'm doing an addition problem, and so I'm going to write 2,384 on the top, one number in each grid, in each cell of my grid here, and then I'm adding to that 457. And so notice I have my ones digits lined up under my ones digits, my tens digits lined up under my tens digits, etc. Okay, so to add this, I'm going to start out with my ones digits, and I'll add 4 plus 7, which is 11. And so I'm going to add a 1 here, and then I'm going to regroup by carrying my other one over. And so now I have 1 plus 8 plus 5, which would be 14. So I'll put a 4 here, carry my 1. 1 plus 3 plus 4 is 8, and then finally I have a 2 that I can just bring down to get an answer of 2,841. Okay, number 2, I have 42,684, and I'm adding to that 956. So let me go ahead and set this up in my grid. Okay, so I'll start out with my ones digits. I have 4 plus 6, which is 10. So I need to replace a 0 here and then carry my 1. 1 plus 8 plus 5 is going to be 14. So I put a 4 here, carry my 1. 1 plus 6 plus 9 is 16. So I place a 6 here and carry my 1. Now I'm in the thousands place. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then I have a 4 in the 10,000s place. So this is going to give me an answer of 43,640. Okay, so that's adding whole numbers. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of subtracting problems. Things to remember when you're subtracting. Again, just like adding, you want to make sure you line up your place values. And then don't forget to borrow when we need to in subtraction. Okay, so let's look at example 3 here. I have 1,328 minus 462. So let's go ahead and set this up in the grid. So 1,328 here, and then minus 462 here, being careful to line up place values correctly. I'll start in my units column. 8 minus 2 is 6. Moving to my tens column, I have 2 minus 6, which I can't do, so I need to borrow from my 3. When I borrow from 3 here in the hundreds column, I'm left with a 2, and then over here in the tens column, now I can write this as a 12. So this is 12 minus 6, which is 6. Now going to the hundreds column again, I have 2 minus 4. I can't do 2 minus 4, so I need to borrow again. This time I'll borrow from the thousands column. I'll borrow from 1, which leaves me with a 0 there. And now I have a 12 over in my hundreds column. 12 minus 4 is 8, so I get an answer here of 866. Okay, number 4, I have 23,550. minus 14,833. So some slightly larger numbers here, but it works the same way. Again, line up your place values carefully and correctly. Starting in the units place, I have 0, subtract 3. I can't do that, so I need to borrow from my 5. So that makes this a 4 in the tens place, and now I have 10 minus 3 in the units place. That's 7. Sliding back over to my tens place, now I have 4 minus 3, which is 1. Going to the hundreds, I have 5 minus 8. I need to borrow from the 3 here to do that. So now this is 15 minus 8, which is 7. Going back to the thousands, I have 2 minus 4. I can't do that, so I need to borrow again from the next place. Borrow from this 2. And so this is going to be 12 minus 4, which is 8. And then 1 minus 1 is 0 in my 10,000s place. So I'm left with an answer of 8,717. Okay, going on to when we get there. We have a couple of multiplication problems. The first is 562 times 12. So I'll set that up in my grid. And now when we're multiplying, we focus on our first digit in our units place in the bottom number, which is a 2, and I'm going to multiply this digit by every digit in my top number, the 2, the 6, and the 5. So if I multiply 2 times 2, that gives me 4. If I multiply 2 times 6, that gives me 12. Well, I can't put a 12 in a single box, so I'm going to put a 2 here and then carry my 1 up here. And then I'll do 2 times 5, which is 10, and then I add in that 1 that I carried, which gives me 11. So this becomes a 11, and then the other one would go there. And so now I need to go to the next row in my multiplication, because now that I multiplied my 2, now I need to multiply my 1 right here. So I'm going to add a 0 in, first of all, in my units place. This is what it means by add a 0. And now we're going to take 1 times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Then we'll do 1 times 6, which is 6. And 1 times 5, which is 5. So now I'm done with my multiplying. I've multiplied both the 2 and the 1 in 12. And so now I'm going to simply add these two numbers together. 4 plus 0 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4, 1 plus 6 is 7, and 1 plus 5 is 6. So I get an answer of 6,744. Okay, number 6, 408 times 29. This little dot here, if you didn't know this already, means multiply or times. It means the same thing as the X multiplication symbol. Eventually you'll probably start seeing this one a little bit more as you move on into upper level math. So just know that's what that means. So we'll set up this problem in our grid. 408 times 29. So again, I'm starting with the units digit in 29, so I'm going to take 9 times 8, which is 72. So I place my 2 and carry my 7. 9 times 0 is 0, but then I add my 7, so that gives me 7 here. And then 9 times 4 is 36. Okay, so now I move on to my 2. I need to add a 0 in my units place, though. 2 times 8 is 16, so I place my 6, carry my 1. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, and then 2 times 4 is 8. So now I'm going to add these two numbers together. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 6 is 13. Carry my 1. 1 plus 6 plus 1 is 8. 3 plus 8 is 11. So here I get an answer of 11,832. Okay, we've done 3 out of 4 operations. Now all that's left is to look at some dividing. So when we're dividing whole numbers, the big thing to remember is to only bring down one digit at a time. So let's review some long division. I have 1,125 that I'm dividing by 9. Remember, in a division problem, the first digit that you see written this way is your dividend. It's what goes inside your long division house. And then the second digit here, what you're dividing by, is your divisor. It goes on the outside of your division house. So when I set up this problem, I need to be very careful to make sure I put the correct numbers where they need to go. So my dividend is going to be 1,125. That goes here, and then my divisor is 9. That goes there. So I always start out by trying to take my divisor into the first digit of my dividend. 9 will not go into 1, so then I need to start looking at the first 2 digits in my dividend, 11. So 9 will go into 11 one whole time, so I'm going to put a 1 above the units digit in 11, so it goes here above the second one. And then I perform multiplication. I take this 1 here times 9, and that's going to give me 9, so that goes underneath my 11. And then I subtract from 11 my 9. 11 minus 9 is 2, and then my last step is to bring down my next digit, which also happens to be a 2. So in long division, you might remember that the steps are divide, multiply, subtract, and then bring down. And then we repeat the process over again. So now let's try this with 22. We're going to divide 22 by 9. 9 will go into 22 2 whole times, so I place a 2 up here in my next cell. And then I multiply next. 2 times 9 is 18. Next comes subtraction. 22 minus 18 is 4. And then finally I bring down my 5. So I have a 45 down here. And now I do the process again. 45 divided by 9. 9 will go into 45 5 times. And it goes in exactly 5 times. 9 times 5 is 45. And so we get a remainder of 0, and we're done. Our answer here is 125. Okay, finally, number 8, slightly larger dividend, 30,400, and we're dividing that by 25. So 30,400 goes in the long division box, and on the outside our divisor is 25. So again, I'm going to attempt taking my divisor 25 into, I know it won't go into my first digit 3, so I'll try to take it into my next 2 digits 30, and 25 will go into 30 one whole time. So I place a 1 here above my 0 and 30, and then I multiply. 1 times 25 is 25. I subtract 30 minus 25, which is 5, and then I bring down my next digit in my dividend, which is 4. So now I'm going to divide 54 by 25. Well, 25 will go into 50 2 whole times, so I'm going to go ahead and place a 2 up here above my 4, because that makes sense that it would only go into 54 2 whole times as well. Again, 2 times 25 is 50. So now I have 54 minus 50, which is 4. And so now I'll bring down this 0 to make this 40. Well, if 25 times 2 is 50, I know 25 can only go into 40 then one whole time. So this is 1 times 25. So we'll have 40 minus 25. I need to borrow from 4 so that I can do 10 minus 5, which is 5, and then 3 minus 2, which is 1. So we subtract, we get a 15, and then we need to bring down this last 0. So now we're trying to divide 150 by 25. Try to think about how many times 25 would go into 150. And if you need to, you can do some multiplication off on the side. I know that 25 times 4 is going to give me 100. So that means that I need to choose a number larger than 4. Well, let's try 5. 25 times 5 would be 125. Let's even try larger than 5. Let's try 6. 25 times 6 is exactly 150. So 6 is the last digit that I need to pick for my answer here. 6 times 25 is 150. And I get a remainder of 0. So my answer to this division problem, which is called the quotient, is 1,216. Okay, after you watch a video 6th grade, you always want to take the time to write down any questions you have over that video so that you remember to ask those the next time you're in class. So go ahead and do that now, and then we'll see you the next time you're in class. Until then, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people. Take care.